is their daddy, huh?
You're sick.
The story takes place on a night of heavy rain. Evan is working overtime alone at home when a rapid knock suddenly pounds on the door. Curious, he opens it and finds two girls standing there, completely soaked. They ask if they can come inside to get out of the rain. Evan hesitates for a moment after hearing this, but seeing how drenched they are, he instantly feels a wave of sympathy, so he invites them in to rest. Worried about dirtying the floor, the girls even change into slippers on their own. Seeing them take off their shoes before entering, Evan completely lets down his guard. He goes back to the bedroom to get some towels, but when he returns, the two girls have already made their way into the living room. After learning that their phones were soaked by the rain, Evan kindly helps them book a rideshare, but because the storm is so heavy, the car will take 45 minutes to arrive. With nothing else to do, the three of them sit on the couch and start chatting. Val says they are tourists visiting the area, and that they missed the last bus because of the weather. Luckily, they ran into kind-hearted Evan, which kept them from being stranded in the downpour. Wearing wet clothes makes them uncomfortable, so they ask to use the dryer. After hearing this, Evan once again feels sympathetic. Watching him walk away, the two girls know very clearly that their target has taken the bait. Evan pours each of them a cup of hot water, then takes their wet clothes to dry. Just then, a burst of noise suddenly comes from the living room. Evan hurries out to check. He finds the two girls have turned on his record player and are dancing energetically. They are even holding Evan's dog in their arms. Although their behavior crosses a few boundaries, Evan does not think much of it. When they see him come over, the girls quickly apologize. Then they start asking him how to use the record player. During their small talk, Evan mentions his family. They had planned a beach vacation together, but because of a last-minute work arrangement, he is home alone now. But before he can say much more, Genesis and Belle suddenly wrap their arms around Evan from both sides.
Whoa.
Such intimate behavior makes Evan very uncomfortable. He quickly stands up and moves to sit across from them, but they follow right after him and sit down on either side again. Uneasy, he stands up to avoid them and awkwardly glances at his phone. The rideshare is still 20 minutes away, but the girls are already leaning closer. Evan can only force a smile to hide his discomfort. With just 5 minutes left until the car arrives, Evan finally breathes a small sigh of relief. He quickly tries to change the subject. He turns on the record player to play some music, hoping to stop Genesis from crossing any more lines. But as soon as the music starts, Genesis begins dancing beside him in a deliberately suggestive way. And just as she pulls Evan into dancing with her, a notification pops up saying the rideshare has arrived. Seeing this, Genesis has no choice but to stop what she is doing. Evan immediately snaps back to his senses and rushes to get their dried clothes. But the two girls hide in the bathroom. No matter how hard he knocks, there is no response. Worried something might have happened, Evan goes in to check. He covers his eyes as he steps inside, but the sight in front of him still startles him badly. Genesis and Belle are standing there without clothes. Staring at him, he tells them to get dressed right away, but instead, they rush toward him. In the end, Evan gives into the situation and fails to resist the temptation. Meanwhile, the driver outside has already arrived. The driver waits at the door for half an hour, but Evan never answers his phone. Seeing no one come out, the driver eventually cancels the ride and leaves. When Evan wakes up the next day, he finds dozens of messages from his wife. He hurriedly sends a brief explanation and puts his wedding ring back on. Looking at the empty room, he assumes the girls have already left. but when he walks into the kitchen, he realizes they are still there, and they have made a complete mess of the place. The two girls are clumsily making breakfast. The once tidy kitchen now looks like a disaster zone. The girls who seemed gentle last night now act rude and unrestrained. Seeing this, Evan completely loses his temper and yells at them to get out of his house. But how could they possibly let things go so easily? They shamelessly refuse to leave for good, but a single sentence from one of the girls makes him freeze. Belle says she is underage, and that if the police come and learn her age, Evan could end up in serious legal trouble. Hearing this, Evan instantly panics. Just then, his wife suddenly calls. Evan rushes out to the yard to answer. He lies and says he was working at home all night, which is why he did not reply to her messages. But the girls suddenly run up behind him and start shouting loudly on purpose. Evan's nervous eyes dart around as he hurriedly hangs up. He storms back inside, angrily grabbing the girls. He warns them to leave immediately, but he waits at the door for a long time and they still do not come out. Belle is in the bedroom playing on her phone. Genesis is nowhere to be seen. Evan searches the house for quite a while.
Come on. Playtime's over.
No!
Furious, he shoves Belle aside and gives her 5 minutes to get dressed, while he waits outside smoking. But when the time is up, there is still no sign of them. When he goes back in, he finds the two of them scribbling all over his wife's sculpture. Evan finally reaches his limit and pulls out his phone to call the police. But the two girls just start laughing. Then one sentence from Belle makes him freeze again. She repeats that she is underage, and that if the police get involved and learn her age, Evan could face serious consequences. Hearing this, Evan panics all over again, realizing they are not adults. Just then, the neighbor rings the doorbell. Evan quickly goes to handle it. He instinctively closes the door behind him, not wanting the neighbor to see the girls inside. But after only a few words, the girls walk out, clinging to Evan in an overly familiar way. Seeing this, the neighbor angrily scolds Evan before turning and leaving. Evan storms back into the house, planning to use force to throw them out.
Oh, these two cute little girls can get you behind your neighbor. Oh, your wife, see your wife divorce you, and your business.
But the girls run around while threatening to expose what happened the night before. In a burst of anger, Evan grabs Belle by the throat. Seeing that things are getting dangerously out of control, the girls finally back down and agree to let Evan drive them home. Evan drives them back in silence, too agitated to speak. This time, the two girls do not cause any trouble. After Evan returns home, he quickly cleans the house before his wife comes back, and wipes the graffiti off the sculpture. Now all he has to do is pretend nothing ever happened. He thinks he has finally escaped the nightmare, but that night, he hears the sound of shattering glass again. Evan cautiously walks into the living room, and soon notices the broken family photo frame on the floor. When Evan wakes up again, he finds himself tied to the bed. Belle is putting on makeup in front of the mirror. As he struggles desperately, Genesis walks in wearing his daughter's clothes. Evan angrily tells her to take them off. Genesis then climbs onto the bed, first pressing her foot against his chest. Evan begs her to let him go, but Genesis sits on top of him. He turns his face away as she tries to kiss him. Just then, Evan's phone starts ringing. The two of them search for a while and finally find the phone hidden beneath him. When they see it as a video call from his wife, Evan is terrified. He can only promise not to resist anymore, and the girls finally stop. Belle turns on the phone's camera, sets up the angle, and props it in place. Then she turns and walks toward the kitchen.
My shirt! Oh my God!
When Evan wakes up again, he finds himself tightly bound to a chair. Seeing that Evan refuses to cooperate, the girls put headphones on him. A piercing high-frequency noise blasts into his ears, causing intense pain, and he is forced to comply with their demands. After that, the two of them start playing a game with Evan. If he answers a question incorrectly, Genesis turns the sound up to maximum as punishment. The two of them are having fun when the doorbell suddenly rings outside. It turns out Evan's friend Lewis has come to pick up his artwork. The girls quickly push Evan into a storage room. Then they open the door and claim to be Evan's sisters. After that, they bring Lewis into the house. But Lewis is suspicious. He has never heard Evan mention having a sister, let alone two young women. Suddenly, Lewis hears a noise coming from a nearby bedroom. Genesis and Belle try to stop him but fail. When he reaches the bedroom, he is shocked to see Evan tied up. Just as he is about to untie him, a crashing sound comes from outside. He soon discovers that his artwork is being destroyed. Lewis becomes so upset that his asthma suddenly flares up. He searches all his pockets but cannot find his inhaler. It turns out Belle had already taken it. The two girls then begin to toy with Lewis. By this point, Lewis is too weak to stand. He slips and hits his head hard on a nearby sculpture.
Lewis! Please! This isn't his fault, please!
The girls pause for only a second before bursting into laughter. Evan begs them to call for medical help. He promises that if they take Lewis to the hospital, they can have whatever they want. But Belle and Genesis show no concern at all. They shove Evan into a corner. Then they wrap Lewis in newspapers. They shape it to look like a sculpture and load him directly into a cargo vehicle. They even use Lewis's phone to send out a text message. After returning, they prepare to continue tormenting Evan. Faced with such unhinged behavior, all Evan can do is beg for mercy. No matter how Evan tries to explain himself, the fact that he betrayed his family cannot be changed. No matter how the girls try to threaten him, Evan still refuses to cooperate. Genesis then places an alarm clock beside Evan. She tells him that when morning comes, they will end his life. After that, the two of them go into the backyard and start digging a hole. While they are distracted, Evan notices his tablet sitting on a table. He quietly shifts over and uses his foot to slide the tablet onto the floor.
Karen.
But before he can do anything with it, Genesis finishes digging and comes back inside. Belle spots the tablet near Evan's feet and immediately picks it up and throws it away. Evan loses all hope. He watches helplessly as the girls destroy his wife's artwork. They leave the entire house in complete chaos. They even crudely cut off chunks of his long hair. Later, Genesis and Belle go into the walk-in closet and change into clean clothes. When they come back out, they continue tormenting Evan. Soon, it is 4 in the morning. The two of them are still treating the house like their playground. Belle picks up a gun and tells Genesis to go untie Evan. Then she gives Evan 30 seconds to hide. She says that if they cannot find him before sunrise, they will let him go. The three of them begin a twisted game of hide-and-seek inside the house.
Go! Go! Go!
Evan knows this is his last chance to escape. He grabs 2 kitchen items for protection and runs out the front door.
Daddy? Evan? Evan? Evan?
While the girls are searching for him, Evan tries to get away, but he accidentally trips over a small cart on the ground. Belle immediately chases after him. Evan shouts for help, but there are no other houses within 500 meters. Time quickly passes, and it becomes 6 in the morning. The girls use a small cart to drag Evan into the backyard. They bring the bound Evan to the edge of the deep hole. Then they push him inside. After forcing him to sit upright, they begin shoveling dirt into the hole. Within minutes, only Evan's head is left above the ground. He continues begging, hoping they will spare him. In truth, They do not plan to kill him right away, only to keep tormenting him. Belle then says that if he wants to live, he must call his wife and confess to being unfaithful, and describe what happened in the bathroom with the two of them, in order to survive. Evan has no choice but to agree, but when the call goes to voicemail, he still cannot bring himself to confess. Instead, he shouts for his wife to call the police. Before he can finish, Belle covers his mouth again, but the girls are not worried, because the call had already been ended. Belle then lifts a large rock. She decides to finish him off once and for all. This is a game they have played many times before. Now they are ready to move on to the home of another man living alone. Before leaving, Belle takes out her phone. Genesis finds the video they recorded earlier in the bedroom. She says it has already been sent to all of Evan's friends and family. Belle and Genesis then turn and walk away. This is a punishment more painful than death, and Evan watches them leave in despair. All that remains is Evan staring at himself on the phone screen, completely broken. 2 days later, Evan's wife returns home with the children. She finds the house in total disarray. Evan once had a very happy family. He had 2 children and a loving relationship with his wife. All of this began because he failed to control himself in a moment of weakness. There are many beautiful things in life, but they should never be taken from where they do not belong.